Hey, I'm Scott at ediblemusic.com. It can be a really frustrating feeling to be almost finished your mix, and then you compare it to other songs on your headphones or out of your speakers, and it just doesn't sound as loud as theirs does. It might be a great balance. You might have done a great job, but it just doesn't reach those levels and that quality of sound that the other songs might have. So I want to help you to know what to look for in order to bring your songs up, in order to make them more comparable to your reference tracks or to other songs in the genre that you're working on, or other songs that might fit really well with it on a playlist. The first thing that you'll want to look at are the peaks. If I play through this song, and I'm not going to play the audio because I'll get yelled at by the copyright cops, but you can see that it reaches a peak of negative zero point 0.1 decibels. Just as you would see on your decibel meters, it reaches all the way up to negative zero point 0.1. So you might just need to turn yours up a little bit in order to reach that peak level as well. That's one way of comparing yours to another song, and it's a pretty straightforward measurement. What is the highest level of their song, and what is the highest level of your song? If I compare it to a different song here, and when I play through this song, it only reaches up to negative 1.3, which is a pretty big difference when you're comparing one song to another. About 1.2 decibels. The other one is going to sound a lot more appealing to our ears than the one that's a little bit quieter. Now, again, measuring the peak level is a pretty straightforward way of comparing your song to another one. But when we think of loudness, we think about it in a bit of a different way. It takes a different amount of volume or amplitude for us to feel as though, say, a lower frequency is as loud as a higher frequency. Think about the sound of just a low hum, maybe an air conditioner or your computer, versus someone snapping their fingers or hitting a triangle. That will sound much louder because it contains these higher frequencies that our ears are much more sensitive to. So even though they might have the same level of loudness, because they're at different frequencies, we're going to hear their loudness differently. We're going to think one is louder than the other. So we also want to think about loudness in terms of frequencies. And in order to do that, I want you to look into measuring the LUFS of your song, which stands for loudness units full scale. The loudness units full scale measures the average and the smaller moments of loudness in the song by weighting things a little bit differently than if it was just to measure in a flat sense the loudness of every single frequency. Instead, it weights the measurement that it takes in accordance with how our ears tend to perceive varying levels depending upon the frequencies that they are. And if we look again at the song that you're comparing it with, this one in blue has negative 11.2 or 0.3 LUFS integrated, which measures the average loudness over the course of the entire song. That's weighted to the way that our ears will perceive loudness. Because there can be one moment where there's just like a really loud tick on a drum or on a cymbal, and the waveform will have a really brief spike in it, but overall you might have a very quiet song over the course of it in comparison with this peak level that's all the way up there. The rest of the song may be way down here. So again, you want to be able to bring up the average level of your song in order to make it feel louder over the course of the entire program. Again, when we compare it to our song, we only reached negative 15.7. So the average level will also need to come up. And you can do that as well, mostly by bringing things up in the mix or in the master so that the average level reaches a much better comparison or comparative level with the one that you're referencing. And not only because our ears evaluate what loud means due to frequency, we also want to make sure that the song has loudness that carries through the entire program. So if you come back to this song that we're comparing with, it will have a short-term LUFS that measures around negative 10, sometimes negative 9. It moves a little bit as the beat happens, or maybe there's a moment in the song that is a little bit explosive and has some rhythmic power to it that might bring up the level of the song. You want to allow that kind of loudness to come through while also having an integrated or average loudness that helps to make your song feel much more comparable to the reference that you're working on. And in order to get these comparative measurements right, it's really important to get your mix balanced as best as possible. Because we're thinking not only about the volume of things, we're taking into account the frequency information. That means that we need to have a really nice tonal balance in our mix that will help us towards getting the loudness levels that we need. So I want you to make use of the mix bounce checklist that I made that will take you through the steps to check for all of what you need to make sure of, so that your mix, when you bounce it and send it over to mastering or switch it over to the mastering process, that the levels and the tonal balance are all in a good spot, so that when you're mastering, you'll be able to achieve the right LUFS, averages, and momentary loudness and peak loudness that you should. Get it at ediblemusic.com/ready.